December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor lies quiet under the pale light of a waning moon. The water is glassy, reflecting the faint silhouettes of anchored ships. But this calm is deceptive, an ominous silence that precedes chaos. In the distance, the low hum of engines grows, foreign planes cutting across the sky. A warning no one can fully grasp. The first bombs fall. The night explodes in fire and smoke. Steel bends and shatters. Men scream. Alarms blare over the chaos. And then it happens. USS Arizona, once a symbol of American pride, is engulfed in a column of flame. A blinding explosion that rips through the deck and sends sailors into the sea. Over 1,000 men are swallowed by the harbor. Their lives ended, their stories trapped beneath the water. As the harbor burns and panic spreads, survivors cling to rafts and wreckage, eyes wide with disbelief, the smell of burning fuel and salt water mixing in the night air. Some whisper that the screams did not stop when the smoke cleared, that the echoes of the dying linger, carried on the waves, bouncing off the steel of the sunken hull. Decades later, divers descend into the depths of the Arizona, water cold and dark, pressure heavy, every movement sending ripples through history itself. They report hearing knocks, soft at first, then deliberate, rhythmic, as if someone, or something, is trying to communicate. Objects shift without explanation. Shadows flicker just beyond the beam of their flashlights. And yet official logs remain silent. No record of these phenomena. A singular disappearance of facts, leaving only the mystery. Locals pass down stories in hushed tones. A fisherman swears he heard a voice calling his name. A retired sailor claims he felt a hand press against his shoulder while inspecting the wreck. Children who play near the harbor tell of glowing eyes beneath the surface, shapes moving with intent, warning, or beckoning. Something resides within the Arizona, not content to rest. An imprint of the lives lost, of echoes that refuse to fade. The water seems ordinary to those who glance casually, yet those who linger, who listen, hear the whispers of history that refuse to be forgotten. The Arizona is more than steel and memory. It is a threshold, a place where fact meets folklore, where the line between reality and legend blurs, where the story of a sunken ship becomes the story of a haunting, a call to those who dare to descend. And so it begins, not with answers, but with questions, the first stirrings of a mystery that will stretch across time, across decades, across the hearts of those who seek to understand, and perhaps across the boundary of life and death itself. The Arizona waits, silent yet speaking, its secrets locked beneath waves, ready for those who will listen. December 8th, 1941. The harbor is a chaotic mosaic of destruction and silence. Smoke rises from splintered decks. Twisted steel glints under the early morning sun. Survivors stumble across floating debris, faces streaked with soot and seawater. Each movement feels like a brush with death itself. Officers hurry to record names, numbers, and injuries. Yet even amidst the meticulous documentation, there are things the records cannot explain. Tremors felt in the sunken hull. Faint knocks echoing through empty compartments. Families gather along the shore, watching in disbelief as rescue operations begin. Children clutch at their mothers' skirts, eyes wide with fear and confusion. The cries of the wounded mingle with the distant groan of ships. A nurse whispers about seeing shadows moving unnaturally on the water. Fleeting glimpses of shapes that vanish when approached. Even the most stoic sailors admit to a creeping unease, as if something beneath the waves is aware of the chaos above. Divers begin their first inspections of the wreck. Water murky temperature dropping with depth. Each step on the hull reverberates through the surrounding steel. Knocks and taps are heard subtle at first, almost polite, then deliberate, echoing through corridors that no one above remembers. Instruments register anomalies, currents that make no sense, compasses spinning without reason. The Arizona seems to resist intrusion, a silent guardian of its dead. In the officers' logs, meticulous details record what can be measured: names of the lost, compartments destroyed, equipment mangled. But the logs hint at unease. Phrases like unusual vibrations and singular occurrences appear, always in passing, never fully explained. Letters from crew members recovered later speak of a persistent feeling, as though the ship itself whispers warnings, messages for those still alive. The mainland receives fragmented news. Radio broadcasts stutter with the weight of disbelief. Images of the harbor flicker on early televisions. Fires raging, sailors clinging to wreckage. Yet these images cannot capture the subtler phenomena: the faint knocking, shadows moving beneath waves, or the way the water seems to ripple with intent, hinting at a consciousness trapped between steel and current. Local fishermen whisper stories of glowing eyes beneath the surface, shapes that move with purpose. Some say these are the spirits of the lost crew. Others claim something older, something that predates the war. One elderly sailor recalls a night when a phantom figure appeared at the bow, vanished before he could call out, leaving only a ripple and a sense of being watched. Salvage crews recount strange occurrences: ropes tightening inexplicably, tools vanishing only to reappear, sudden shifts in water pressure. Some divers hear the sound of footsteps on metal floors, the echoes of lives lost, even though no one else is aboard. Fear and respect grow in equal measure as the line between documented reality and folklore begins to blur. Children of Pearl Harbor carry stories passed down, tales of a ship that speaks, knocks that echo across calm waters. Families note patterns, recurring each December. Some insist the dead are trying to communicate. A ritual, a warning, a plea. Whatever it is persistent, patient, and impossible to ignore. Decades later, engineers inspecting the wreck for preservation still report anomalies: sudden cold spots, currents that move against logic, tools shifting without cause. Instruments detect vibrations, repeating rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, a pulse emanating from the depths. The Arizona seems alive, not with flesh but memory and energy. Veterans whisper accounts not written in any official report, voices calling their names, lights flickering aboard anchored ships, figures glimpsed in peripheral vision. Fleeting, unsettling. The stories accumulate, building a tapestry of fear, awe, and mystery, a legacy that is as much legend as it is history. Newsreels from the 1940s capture fire and chaos, but never the knocking, never the shadows beneath. Only those who dared linger, who listened closely, began to understand that the Arizona is more than steel, more than memory. It is a threshold, where the living meet the echoes of the dead, where history becomes legend. The officers' personal journals hint at an unspoken fear: unexplained tremors, water moving against currents. The meticulous logs of the Navy remain silent on these details, yet whispers circulate, mentioning phenomena that defy explanation, as if the ship protests human intrusion, a vessel asserting itself across decades. Divers and researchers note a recurring motif: objects shift inexplicably, sounds repeat, patterns emerge. Each diver emerges with a story, Each story adds to the legend. The Arizona does not surrender its secrets easily, nor its echoes. It waits, beneath the calm surface, watching, communicating, haunting, and so the context is set. A harbor of chaos, a ship of memory, survivors and witnesses caught between fact and legend. From this foundation, the documentary will delve deeper, exploring official reports, salvagers' testimonies, eyewitness accounts, and folklore, layer by layer, revealing a story that is part history, part haunting, and wholly unforgettable. Official reports from the days following December 7th, 1941, paint a scene of unimaginable devastation. Decks torn apart, equipment twisted, over 1,000 men missing, their names recorded in neat columns on fragile paper. Each entry carries weight, a silent testimony to lives cut short. Yet even within these precise logs, anomalies appear. Phrases like unexplained vibrations or singular occurrences hint at events outside normal understanding. Engineers tasked with assessing structural damage note inconsistencies in water pressure readings, temperatures dropping suddenly in isolated compartments. Salvage crews in the years that followed face hazards beyond the expected. Ropes tighten of their own accord. Tools vanish only to reappear in different locations. Submersibles encounter currents that defy calculation. And divers report hearing the faintest knocks, rhythmic, deliberate, sometimes echoing down corridors long submerged. One diver recalled a metallic clatter that coincided with no known movement, a sound that seemed to respond to his own heartbeat. Newspaper articles from 1942 describe early salvage attempts as fraught with strange interruptions, men refusing to enter certain sections, claiming feelings of being watched. A local reporter notes in his journal, "The water seems alive. It moves with intent, a presence, an unspoken warning." These accounts sit alongside official reports, creating a tension between documented reality and human perception, between what was recorded and what was sensed. Letters recovered from crew members' families contain fragments of unease, hints at premonitions, dreams of fire and water. Some mention strange noises aboard prior to deployment. An almost imperceptible tapping dismissed by officers at the time as the settling of steel. Yet for those who survived, the feeling lingered, a presence that could not be rationalized, that would not be forgotten. Naval journals describe the aftermath of the explosion in precise terms. Casualties counted, equipment inventoried, structural damage measured. But footnotes hint at moments that resist quantification. The sudden snapping of metal in silent compartments, lights flickering with no source, instruments recording events that never occurred according to engineering models. Something within the Arizona seems aware of the observers, responding, interacting, haunting even the most meticulous investigators. Decades later, divers mapping the wreck note patterns. Objects move without apparent cause. Currents pulse in strange rhythms. Some report hearing voices, indistinct, fragmented, whispers of names long past. Others recount the sensation of hands brushing against their shoulders, a presence that is tangible yet without form, as the hull yields only partially to technology. The mystery deepens, blending fact with sensation, memory with legend. Archived photographs show mangled decks and equipment, yet some images contain anomalies, shadows that seem to shift, shapes not accounted for by light or debris. Analysts note these oddities, dismiss some, but others remain unexplained, reinforcing the sense that the ship itself retains echoes of the lives lost, that steel and water together that create a vessel for something more, something enduring. Survivor testimonies collected in oral histories speak of sounds aboard the decks before the explosion. Metal bending, whispered warnings. Some claim they felt hands on their shoulders as if someone tried to push them towards safety. Others describe seeing figures out of the corner of their eyes, moving with intent, disappearing before they could be fully observed. These stories persist, recurring across decades, forming a web of human experience intertwined with the physical reality of the wreck. Salvage engineers in the 1950s describe instruments behaving oddly, compasses spinning, pressure gauges oscillating, sudden cold spots in compartments, small items shifting, even cameras misfiring. Annotations in logs speak of a resistance beyond expected mechanical failure, almost as if the hull itself protests human interference, a silent, stubborn awareness, a guardian of memory and of mystery. The Navy itself attempted to reconcile fact and folklore. Official divers' reports remain clinical, noting structural issues and risks, yet private journals reveal unease, subtle, unnerving experiences, knocks echoing in empty corridors, objects shifting without cause. Some divers refused to return, citing an indefinable presence, a feeling that the ship remembered its lost crew and would not allow intrusion without acknowledgement. Recovered audio from later salvage operations captures unexplained phenomena, low-frequency knocks, sometimes soft, almost melodic, sometimes sharp and deliberate. Instruments detect subtle vibrations, coinciding with no mechanical activity. Divers speak of the uncanny sensation of being observed, a consciousness embedded in steel and water, echoing through time. Each echo a reminder of lives abruptly ended. Naval archives contain references to irregular sounds and unexpected shifts, notes marked in margins almost furtively. They hint at events not fully understood, dismissed by engineers, but recorded nonetheless. The persistence of these phenomena across decades suggests a pattern, a motif of haunting, a presence that refuses to fade. Fact and folklore entwine, creating a narrative that is both verifiable and elusive. Reports from families and eyewitnesses reinforce this duality. Sightings of lights beneath water, tapping sounds echoing above calm surfaces, feelings of being guided, warned, or watched. Journalists note patterns recurring every December, almost as if the anniversary of the attack awakens the echoes. The Arizona is no longer simply a wreck. It becomes a living archive of memory, of tragedy, of legend. And so the fact layer is established. Verified logs, instruments, photographs, combined with human experience, diver testimony, letters and journals. Each piece contributes to a layered understanding of lost mystery and the inexplicable phenomena that surround the Arizona. From here, the narrative moves toward the folklore layer, where legend, superstition, and haunting tales meet history, deepening the mystery and drawing viewers further into the sunken ship's story. Locals have passed down stories for decades, tales whispered over fishing nets and beach fires. They speak of a ship that refuses to stay silent, of sailors' voices carried up through the water, calling names no one alive remembers. On calm nights, the surface of Pearl Harbor ripples for no reason, as if unseen hands brush against it. Sometimes a faint knocking echoes, soft at first, deliberate, echoing in patterns, almost communicative. Elders tell of divers who returned pale, eyes wide, clutching the sides of their helmets, reporting shadows moving in impossible ways, figures glimpsed in peripheral vision, vanishing when observed directly. They whisper of lights beneath the surface, flickering like lanterns, but with no source. And those who remain too long feel a pressure, a presence, something tangible yet not of this world. One story recounts a fisherman who decades ago cast his net near the Arizona. The water trembled beneath his hands, and then he heard a tap, like a hammer on steel. He froze, listening. The sound repeated, once, twice, thrice, then silence. He pulled in his net, tangled in shapes too strange to identify. That night he dreamt of faces, eyes staring from below, silently pleading. Ghost stories circulate among retired sailors, of footsteps along the deck, when no one is aboard, of whispers in empty compartments. Some speak of distant singing, harmonies that rise from the water at night, carrying words no living person can decipher. One veteran claimed he saw a figure in a naval uniform, standing atop the deck, though it had long since been submerged, fading into the water with the sunrise. Fishermen also recount strange phenomena, nets snagged on invisible obstructions, strange ripples moving against currents, small lights appearing and disappearing, some resembling lanterns, others, faces. In hushed tones, locals refer to the Arizona as the ship that watches, a presence beneath the water that marks the calendar of memory and loss. Its echoes are said to grow stronger in December, the anniversary of the attack. Families visiting the harbor speak of subtle warnings, chills that run along the spine, the feeling of being observed. Sometimes small objects disappear from boats, returned later, in places impossible to explain. One report tells of a compass spinning wildly, only when directly above the sunken ship. Patterns like these repeat, across decades, across witnesses, building a tapestry of legend that intertwines with documented fact. Divers in the 1970s and 80s report phenomena similar to those described in oral histories. They hear knocks and taps in locations where no steel supports exist. Their flashlights reveal fleeting shadows, distorted reflections, and yet no living presence is observed. The ship seems to interact with them, as if alive, remembering, communicating, guarding. Each expedition adds a new layer, a new echo, to the folklore. A retired naval officer recalled, while performing a routine inspection, he felt a hand press lightly on his shoulder. He spun. Nothing. Yet the sensation lingered, unnervingly. The sound of tapping followed him back to the surface. He did not speak of it publicly for years, fearing ridicule. These personal accounts echo across time, linking the modern witness to the survivors of 1941. Local children are told the stories carefully, of lights and sounds, shadows and whispers, a cautionary tale of the dead who linger. It is said the ship waits, patient, observing, and even the uninitiated feel it. The Arizona leaves its impression on all who draw near. Each visit, each dive, each observation becomes part of the legend. Journalists writing retrospectives mention the folklore, hesitant to include it in official reports. Yet notes appear, observations of anomalies, of diver discomfort, unexplained knocks, shadows, fleeting lights. Even newsreel footage sometimes shows unexplained glimmers beneath the water. A subtle hint of presence, a reminder that history and myth are not always separate. A recurring motif emerges, the knocking, the taps, a rhythm, deliberate, almost as if the ship itself, or the spirits within, attempts to communicate. Some claim messages are embedded, patterns repeating over time, echoing anniversaries, certain hours of the night. Those attuned to the phenomenon feel a pull, a connection, impossible to quantify, yet undeniable. Superstitions grow. Some sailors refuse to work near the wreck at night. Others leave offerings, coins, flowers, small gestures to appease whatever lingers. It is said that those who disrespect the Arizona experience accidents, minor at first, then more serious, a pattern too consistent to dismiss. The legend begins to dictate behavior, shaping interactions with the past. Researchers studying these accounts note parallels with other sunken ships, USS Oklahoma, USS West Virginia, similar reports of Knox Light's presences. Across the Pacific, a haunting motif repeats. The Arizona is part of a larger pattern. The ocean as archive, holding memories, echoes, spirits, a network of maritime mystery. And so the folklore layer builds. Each story, each witness, each anomaly, woven together with fact, creating a multidimensional portrait. The Arizona is simultaneously historical record memorial and living legend. The ship beneath the waves waits, silent, yet speaking. Through taps, lights, and shadows, beckoning viewers deeper into a story that is far from over. Across the Pacific, stories of sunken ships echo a similar motif. USS Oklahoma, USS West Virginia, vessels swallowed by water yet never silent. Divers report knocks and taps, shadows shifting in ways that defy logic. Lights flicker beneath murky depths. Objects move without cause. A pattern emerges. The dead beneath steel and water are not fully gone. Their echoes reach across time, connecting the Arizona to a broader network of maritime mystery. In Truk Lagoon, divers speak of hulls that whisper, taps that repeat, almost messages. These occurrences mirror those at Pearl Harbor, a rhythm that transcends location, across decades, across oceans. It is as if the ships themselves remember, as if the spirits of sailors demand recognition. The motif repeats, a signature of lost memory and unexplainable presence. Back at Pearl Harbor, veterans recount the eerie resonance. They describe hearing knocks in quiet quarters, long after the attack. Some hear footsteps, the metallic creak of a deck settling. Others feel cold drafts, like unseen hands brushing their shoulders. A retired sailor recalls a distant voice calling his name, though no one was nearby. The motif threads together, past and present, fact and folklore. The knock appears again, rhythmic, deliberate. In each instance, those who listen feel an almost conscious intent, a presence, alert, observing, warning, communicating. Historians note that accounts cluster around anniversaries. December, a month heavy with remembrance. The repetition suggests awareness, the echoes of memory preserved in steel and water. Families visiting the harbor tell of shadows beneath calm surfaces, small glowing orbs, fleeting shapes. They feel a pull, a weight, a connection to the past. Some sailors leave offerings, coins, flowers, gestures meant to honor or appease. Even these rituals follow a pattern, a repetition echoing similar behaviors around other wrecks. Across the Pacific, grief and legend intertwine, forming rituals as old as the waves. Newspaper accounts from the 1940s mention anomalous phenomena, unexplained sounds, odd currents. Reports are brief, almost hidden, as though the journalists themselves sensed a boundary between fact and the unspeakable, between what can be documented and what demands silence. The Arizona is both a historical record and a threshold into the unknown. Divers' journals describe a recurring experience, the sense of being watched, tools shifting without cause, Low-frequency knocks reverberating through the hull. Instruments occasionally register events with no identifiable source. Each anomaly reinforces the motif, a signature repeated in locations separated by thousands of miles. Time and space become secondary. The message persists. In oral histories, some recount lights rising from submerged decks, fleeting glimpses of figures, sometimes identifiable as sailors, other times unrecognizable. Their movements deliberate. Patterns suggest intent. Repetition is key. Motifs appearing in different wrecks, across years, across oceans. The echoes of loss are universal, yet unique to each vessel. One diver recalled, during a mission near the West Virginia, taps followed him along the hull, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. A sensation of being guided, warned, perhaps judged. The motif of the knock, repeated elsewhere, links the Arizona to a network of haunting presences, a pattern that transcends a single tragedy. Journalists and historians note these similarities. Connecting reports from Pearl Harbor, Truk Lagoon, and the South Pacific, the motif of echoes, taps, shifting shadows, the sensation of awareness, persists across decades, across wrecks, across survivors' accounts. The bridge becomes evident, a common thread between disparate events, a motif of memory and warning. Families at Pearl Harbor continue to recount experiences, children observing ripples in still water, shapes beneath the surface, shadows that move in deliberate patterns. The motif repeats, bringing past and present together, creating a living archive of experience, a shared memory that resists erasure. The bridge connects folklore to fact, history to legend. Researchers map patterns in anomalies, noting times, dates, tides. Anniversaries of attacks show spikes in unexplained activity. The motif is temporal as well as spatial, echoing loss, remembrance, unfinished business. The Arizona is both epicenter and node, connecting other vessels, other tragedies across the Pacific. Divers describe an odd rhythm in the sounds, taps following a pattern, almost like Morse code. Though undeciphered, the repetition implies communication, messages from below, from those who cannot rest. The bridge from fact to folklore grows stronger. The story of the Arizona becomes part of a network, part of a Pacific-wide pattern of haunting. And so the motif is established. Taps, knocks, lights, shadows. A rhythm that links sunken vessels, a bridge across space and time. The Arizona is no longer isolated. It is part of a continuum, a web of maritime memory, legend, and unexplainable presence. As the documentary moves forward, the bridge prepares the viewer for the haunting crescendo, the climax. The Arizona rests beneath the waves, silent yet speaking. Its steel hull holds secrets that few dare to confront. Divers report the knocks again, louder, deliberate, almost impatient. Each echo resonates through the corridors of memory, a reminder of lives abruptly ended. Some swear the taps follow them, through passageways that no one above remembers, a pattern impossible to ignore. During a 1975 salvage operation, a diver's journal vanished, the pages detailing anomalies, meticulous notes on shadows, taps, and inexplicable currents. Later, the notebook was found, soaked ink smeared, words barely legible, some entries missing entirely, as if someone, or something, did not want the record preserved. Witnesses claim the diver's flashlight flickered when the pages disappeared, shadows moving in tandem with the light. Engineers inspecting structural supports recount sudden collapses, tools shifting, gauges swinging wildly. Yet official reports minimize these events. Logs mention mechanical failures, omitting anomalies. Even sailors' testimony is inconsistent. Some swear they saw figures walking on submerged decks. Others report hearing voices calling names of crew long deceased. Contradictions abound, leaving the truth suspended between documentation and perception. One diver recalls descending into the Arizona's aft compartments, tapping sounds echoing from deeper below. As he moves forward, the pressure increases, instruments spike, and a metallic clang rings out. Yet no equipment has moved. Nothing could have caused the sound. It is deliberate, directed, as if the ship itself responds to human intrusion, a silent protest, or a warning. A retired officer claims he witnessed lights rising through the water, flickering in strange rhythms, resembling signals, perhaps communication. No source was visible, no explanation plausible. Yet the effect on the crew was profound: unease, a palpable fear. Divers reported chills and the sensation of being watched, something aware, sentient, lurking beneath. Documents recovered from the early salvage attempts speak in hushed, careful language. References to singular occurrences, unaccountable phenomena, brief notes scribbled in margins, almost in fear. The brevity is telling. The writers acknowledge the anomalies, but dare not expand, as though the very words might summon something deeper. Eyewitness accounts describe figures appearing briefly, silhouetted against wreckage, moving, disappearing, shapes that shift too fluidly to be human, voices echoing in ways that defy the laws of water and metal. Some say the figures resemble sailors lost aboard, others unrecognizable, a hybrid of memory and presence. The line between fact and legend dissolves completely. In the 1980s, divers captured faint sounds on audio equipment. Taps, raps, irregular almost like Morse code. Attempted translation failed, yet patterns repeated. The rhythm distinct, deliberate. A communication, perhaps. The Arizona seems alive with memory. A vessel speaking in its own language, carrying echoes of the dead, reaching those who dare to descend. A salvage diver recounts suddenly being yanked backward, pulled by a current that had no explanation. Knocks thundered from compartments above and below. Lights danced across the water. Shadows twisted and moved. Instruments failed. The diver surfaced shaken, reporting a sensation of being actively prevented from intrusion. The ship was asserting itself, guarding its secrets. Multiple witnesses report seeing objects move without cause. Ropes tighten, tools disappear, reappear. Sometimes they vanish entirely, never to return. The loss of evidence adds to the suspense. Journal entries, logs, photographs, missing, selectively erased by fate, or something else. Every disappearance reinforces the sense that the Arizona is not inert, that it chooses what to reveal and what to conceal. A diver in 1992 reported hearing whispers, fragmented, unintelligible, like voices of the past, names called in the rhythm of taps, a ghostly cadence accompanying every motion through the wreck. Some divers felt pressure on their shoulders, a guiding hand, or a warning. Their fear palpable, the line between past and present dissolving. The ship seemed to breathe, alive in memory, alive in presence. Eyewitness statements conflict, yet overlap. One diver sees a figure ascending from the depth, another hears laughter. Yet the physical space cannot contain both. Instruments confirm nothing. The contradictions remain unresolved, leaving truth suspended between experience and documentation, Fact and folklore, reality and haunting. Salvage logs speak of items vanishing from lockers, workstations, personal effects. The crew swore they had been secured, yet disappeared without a trace. Attempts to photograph these occurrences yield nothing. Shadows, blurs, or nothing at all. The anomalies cannot be captured fully, preserved only in human memory, a haunting intangible. The Arizona's hull is more than steel, more than history. It is a vessel of echoes, of lives trapped, of stories unfinished. It asserts its presence in taps, shadows, movements, and vanished objects. The climax of the story is not a single event, but a culmination, a layering of all anomalies, all testimonies, all whispers and movements. The ship becomes a living archive of mystery and memory, and so the climax leaves us with questions, with chills, with awe. The Arizona does not surrender its secrets, nor its echoes. It waits, patient, deliberate, communicating in ways human understanding struggles to define. As the documentary moves toward Part 7, the outro, the audience is drawn to confront the unknown, to listen, and to wonder. The surface of Pearl Harbor is calm, deceptively still. Yet beneath the water, the Arizona waits, silent, watching, patient. Its steel hull harboring echoes of over 1,000 souls. Taps and knocks resound through the depths, subtle at first, then deliberate, rhythmic, almost communicative. Divers speak of currents that shift without cause, shadows that dance across their lights, as if the ship itself breathes beneath the waves. Families gather along the shore, staring at the floating remnants, the charred decks, the twisted metal glinting in sunlight. Children point at fleeting glimmers beneath the water, pale shapes moving just out of reach. Elders whisper of patterns recurring every December, taps that mark the anniversary, an unbroken rhythm of memory. A presence lingers, patient, deliberate, as if the lost sailors themselves call out. Objects continue to disappear and reappear, ropes tightening, tools vanishing, personal effects shifting inexplicably. Divers recount seeing shadows in compartments long submerged, lights flickering along the hull. The ship seems to choose what to reveal and what to conceal. The line between reality and legend blurs. Each anomaly adds another layer to the story, weaving memory with mystery. Veterans speak in hushed tones, recounting experiences decades old, the sensation of being observed, hands brushing shoulders, whispers that follow them to the surface. Fear and awe intermingle. The Arizona is no longer just steel and water. It is a vessel of memory, of echoes, of unfinished stories. The living and the dead seem to coexist within its hull. Lights rise from the depths at odd intervals, flickering in ways no diver can fully explain. Sometimes the shapes resemble sailors, sometimes entirely unrecognizable. Their movements deliberate, patterns suggesting intent. Repetition occurs across decades, across different vessels. The echoes of loss ripple outward, creating a network of haunting motifs across the Pacific. Journalists and historians note parallels: taps, shadows, lights, instruments failing inexplicably. The motif repeats across locations, across generations. The Arizona becomes part of a larger pattern. Sunken vessels communicating across oceans, lost memory and legend entwined, a language not meant for the living, yet impossible to ignore. Families report subtle warnings when visiting, chills running along the spine, the feeling of unseen eyes. Children notice ripples and glimmers, fleeting movements beneath the water. Some sailors leave coins, flowers, small offerings, gestures meant to honor or appease. Even these acts follow patterns, echoing similar behaviors elsewhere. Across the Pacific, grief and legend converge. Diverse map, anomalies over decades, rhythms of knocks, strange currents, shadows that flit through compartments, objects shifting. The repetition suggests awareness, perhaps communication, a presence that responds to human observation. The Arizona is more than a wreck. It is alive in memory, alive in presence, a guardian of stories long past. Voices rise in some reports, fragmented, whispers calling names, a cadence matching the taps. Divers feel the past pressing against them, moments stretching unnaturally, a sensation of time bending. The ship seems to remember, to guide, to warn. Each encounter deepens the mystery. Each witness becomes part of the tapestry. Objects vanish completely. Journal pages disappear. Notes smeared and unreadable. Photographs capture only shadows, fleeting lights. The ship seems selective, revealing glimpses, withholding full understanding. History and legend are inseparable. The Arizona's story becomes an experience, lived by those who approach, an imprint on memory and imagination. Elders tell of fishermen witnessing glowing eyes beneath the water, ripples moving against the current, a subtle push or warning. Divers recount instruments going haywire, compasses spinning, currents rising inexplicably. Each anomaly adds weight, a tangible presence, a ship alive in memory, in spirit, bridging fact and folklore. The echoes are strongest in December, the anniversary of the attack. Patterns repeat. Taps, knocks, lights, shadows. The lost crew marking the passage of time. A rhythm embedded in steel and water. Impossible to measure fully, yet undeniable. Each observer feels the pull, the connection, the unbroken chain between past and present. Visitors speak of sensations impossible to describe. Chills, pressure, whispers, moments stretched into eternity. The Arizona watches, responds, remembers. Not a ghost, not mere legend, but a vessel holding echoes, a living archive of human tragedy, history refusing to be silent. Even now the water reflects the sun, peaceful, serene. Yet beneath the ship holds life, memory, and presence. Knocks, taps, shadows, whispers, all reminders that some stories cannot be captured. Some mysteries endure, patiently, deliberately, waiting for those who listen. Perhaps if you stand quietly on the shore, on a calm December night, you might hear it yourself. A tap, a knock, a whisper, beckoning from the depths. The echoes continue, waiting, urging us to remember and to wonder. You have just witnessed another story from Shadow Stories. If you wish to uncover more mysteries hidden in history, more echoes that refuse to fade, subscribe and continue the journey.